Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Hall of Famer Bob Berry ruled Milwaukee's airwaves in the 60s and 70s. He spoke with countless musicians and celebrities over the years. Bob collected remarkable recordings of these encounters, which he's now sharing with the public. Here's Bob.
The man on today's podcast is a little bit country and a tad rock and roll. He's from Wisconsin, had a hit record that was first played by rock and roll station WRIT in Milwaukee. Truck drivers loved him. He's remembered for his 6 days on the road and also for 2 six-packs away and Truck Drivin Son-of-a-Gun. Dave was born in Spencer, Wisconsin. He wanted to be a professional baseball player, but after an arm injury, he decided to pursue a music career. Besides selling over 1 million copies of his hit record, he recorded 70 albums. And if you were a radio listener in the 60s, I'm quite sure you'll remember his hit song. Also, I think you'll remember the little commercial bit going into the interview.
Coming today.
Well, I say, hold on a minute. We got a commercial coming up. Dave Dudley knows exactly what I'm talking about because he's been a disc jockey in his past. In fact, recently was working on WSM. It's nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you, Bob. I didn't realize that you got up this early. I thought you were probably a ladies' home companion about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning or something, you know.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay.
Wish I could change the hours in my contract. That would be nice. Dave started as a disc jockey 22 years ago before becoming the high priest of diesel country, as he's been known in many circles. Is this starting to irritate you a little bit that you're tied in with the truckers all the time?
No, I don't think so. I feel that the best way to say that, Bob, is to say it's better to have some kind of image than none at all. And I'm very, very happy to have any at all because in this day and age, of course, you know, there's so many records out that if you don't have an image of some sort going on, you're in trouble. Because the guys, they just aren't making it today like they used to in the old days. If you come up with a good idea, you could follow it through. Like Haggard, he's done all his drinking songs and Cash his train songs. Fortunately, we can live with those and work with those. Today, it's pretty tough. So we're thankful for that, Bob.
Why did you go back to WSM?
Well, 2 reasons. I wanted to try it and see if it was, they actually talked me into it, to be honest about it. And I wanted to see if I really could do these things again. And I'll tell you one thing, as I said in an article for United Press, I said that I realize now that there's so much work that people don't even see that I'd forgotten about. For instance, a guy like you, they think it just sounds so great to hear you speak and the music comes out. But they have no idea what goes on in between all that. And it's the commercials and setting the time up and making sure everything goes off. And just 100 things that I never realized were there anymore, you know. And it was kind of a challenge, but it got to be too much for me because I was working, and I've got so many personal appearances coming up now all over the country that I just couldn't hack it for the 4 days they needed me at WSM, and then the rest of the time be on concerts. It just didn't work out, and I was exhausted, believe me, Bob, and that's the reason I kind of got off there, basically, because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Besides appearances at for concerts and nightclubs and things like that, Dave attends truckers' conventions, union meetings. He does commercials for truck transmissions. He also, of course, had many hit truck songs. 1 More Mile, Truck Drivin Son-of-a-Gun, Coming Down. Of course, the one we're going to play here in a few minutes, which was the biggest seller for Dave. But one thing that I often wondered, does he really know anything about trucks? Was he ever a truck driver?
Here's a good answer for that one. Before I could do all the commercials I've done, Bob, you had to learn to drive the truck. For instance, I was with the Mack trucks first. And then I was with Detroit Diesel Allison Automatic Transmissions, which is something a little different. And I did that. I was the first guy to drive an automatic transmission truck on Indianapolis Speedway. I'd done that one morning. And I also rented a Hertz rent-a-car, and I did the same thing with that. But now can I say this if I mention the truck?
Sure.
Okay. In order to do commercials for these people, you have to know what you're talking about, so you have to drive them. And I must go out and look at the new Freightliner and drive it. So I better drive a truck, or there'll be no bread for the kids.
Dave Dudley was born here in Wisconsin, Spencer, Wisconsin, raised in Stevens Point.
Yes, sir.
But I wonder how many of you know that he was a professional baseball player. Played in the Chicago White Sox.
Right, I was in their farm chain. Yeah, I heard myself in Texas, Bob, and I was about ready to come up. I had about 2 more years, and I'd have been coming up to Comiskey Park, but I didn't quite work out that way, and the arm went to pieces, and that was all over for me there. So somehow guys like Roy Drusky, Roy Akoff, and Jim Reeves and me wind up as singers after we get out of baseball.
Let's talk about your biggest hit now. And it was a rock station that started this record out, too, wasn't it? It wasn't a country station, was it?
You're right. And actually, there's one in Minneapolis and one in Milwaukee.
Is that right?
Places. And I thought it'd be a country record, never realizing that it'd be that big of a pop record.
Which station in Milwaukee started it?
It was it was the WRIT then?
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
It was a WRIT.
That's right.
And we brought it here, and the guy said, boy, fantastic, put it on. And the same thing happened at KDWB, which was in Minneapolis, St. Paul at the time. And they said the same thing. They couldn't wait to put it on. And it didn't have a label, Bob. It wasn't even, Nashville was one of those things where, don't call me, I'll call you. They weren't sure whether they wanted it or not. So we did it in Minneapolis by ourselves. We did it, and I called it Golden Wing on the spur of the moment, just like I'm talking to you this morning, over 2 cups of coffee. What do we call the company? Golden Wing. Put it out. And it sold 1.5 million. You know, rock stations are kind of fussy about taking records on, especially then, because it was the first controversial record for a country singer, because it mentioned things that you just didn't talk about, like skipping scales and talking about the little white pills and things like that. And these were things that really were tough for me to get the record loose on. In country, it was taboo completely that you didn't say those things. And for some reason or other, they accepted it. So I was the original first outlaw.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Dave, we're going to play it.
Bob, thank you very much for having me on your show, and I've heard so much about it. And, of course, my wife is from Milwaukee, and she said, we got to listen because we're coming home, and I said, I'll listen. So I've been waiting for you to come on. So now I'm up, and I'm going to listen to the whole program, Bobby.
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pulled out of Pittsburgh, rolling down that eastern seaboard. I got my diesel wound up, and she's a-running like I never before. There's a speed zone ahead, well, all right. I don't see a cop in sight. 6 days on the road, and I'm gonna make it home tonight.
Bob Berry, WOKY 9092.
Thank you for listening to Bob Berry's Unearthed Interviews. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find all the episodes at WisconsinBroadcastingMuseum.org. Check out Bob Berry's book, Rock and Roll Radio Milwaukee. Book sale proceeds support Angels Kids Fund and Donate Life Wisconsin. The preceding program was made possible by a generous contribution from Terry Vaughn.